Welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Darin.
And I'm Jonny.
And today we'll be covering, again, from 1995, Apollo 13, directed by Ron Howard. This is like, what, our third Ron Howard? Is like...
Yeah, we did Night Shift, Willow,
Oh,
Far and Away.
and we also did Backdraft, so 5.
Oh, yeah.
But this
Wow.
season 3. So
We're like Ron Howard fans or something.
I guess. But anyway, this is a movie starring Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, Kevin Bacon, Ed Harris, Kathleen Quinlan, Gary Sinise. It's a movie that means it's built and meant something to me over the years. So the thing again, Jonny, that's cool about social media is I get to meet all sorts of like great minds. And this gentleman that's joining us today, Manuel São Bento, he is just want to make sure that I get all his accolades correctly. He is a journalist. He's a Rotten Tomatoes approved film critic for Fandom Wire, Movies We Texted, Talking Films. He's a proud member of the International Film Society Critics and Online Film Critics Society. And with his fellow film critic, Ren Geekness, he co-hosts the Once Upon a Franchise podcast, where they're currently covering the MCU. Am I missing any accolades, Manel?
That's quite the resume.
No, that's quite the... Oh, thank you. No, it's perfect. And I have one more podcast that might be up and coming in 2026.
Oh, okay.
Find the right co-host yet.
All right. Are you allowed to say anything, or you're just keeping it under wraps?
It's the same. No, it's the same sort of concept of Once Upon a Franchise, but instead of visiting franchises, it's like Once Upon a Filmmaker and visit filmmakers' career. So it's kind of the same concept, but it's just an excuse for me to kind of
talk movies.
Yeah, talk about movies, but like visit filmmakers that maybe I would like to watch more movies about.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just my excuse, basically.
Okay. Well, we're definitely going to come back to that. It's a very interesting kind of format to tackle. But like we were talking about off air, like, or even mentioned in the intro here, like you get to meet social media. The great thing about social media, Manel, is you get to meet all these, like I said, like-minded great minds or, like-minded film buffs, that kind of thing. And that's how we met. We just started chatting on Twitter, things like that. But you, again, you just got a very smart mind. I think you just published a review for Predator Badlands, right? That just barely came out. And again, your reviews are very rich and very detailed and a lot. I'm going to say longer, and that sounds like it's denigrating you. It's not. It's like it's very smart and very well thought out, where most people just write maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs. But you're reading your One Battle After Another review, your Frankenstein review, all these things are just very well thought out, and I just love hearing these different, again, you're not just reciting the plots and the cast and things like that, so it's very smart there. But meeting people online, it's funny because you just kind of think that you're next door, and you are in Sweden, is that correct?
Yes, living in Sweden currently, yeah.
So when we plan these interviews, it's always like, oh, yeah, let's do this. Oh, now we have to worry about getting the time right. And so you're 8 hours ahead of me. You're 7 hours ahead of Jonny. So it's what, 7 o'clock where you are right now?
Yeah, pretty much. 7:30, more or less, yeah.
So we appreciate your sacrifice getting up early in the morning. You're a busy guy. But if you could let us know, again, we've had some great conversations online, some good messaging back and forth, things like that. But if you could let us know, one of the things we love to do when we invite guests on is we want people to fall in love with the people we chat with. So let us know how you became a movie fan and how you became a film critic. I really want to know your history and how you're able to kind of step into this position you're in now.
Yeah, I usually say that I'm like a late bloomer to movies as a whole, because as a teenager, I mean, as a kid, obviously I grew up with Disney movies and all that, as most people in the 90s, but it was like around my teenage years that I focused a lot on TV, because my older brother, I remember he was watching a lot of Lost and Fringe, so a lot of sci-fi-ish series, and yeah, I just got into TV a lot. I watched Lost from start to finish. I watched Fringe from start to finish, then Breaking Bad, then I just went through all of those big shows at the time, and I kind of like pushed movies a bit to the side. And it was only when I got into university and I found myself with a bit of more like free time between like lessons and all that I was like, I'm gonna watch more movies now. And I started like doing my watch list for the year, very mainstream at the time and all that. But I believe it was the trigger that kind of made me go like, you know what, I want to learn more about filmmaking. I want to like understand, what these reviews are about and all that. I don't remember the exact movie, but it was a Pirates of the Caribbean film. And I know that because obviously when the first 2 came out, I was still very young. So it's like, oh yeah, this is my franchise. I love it. I love Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. It's like a great blockbuster franchise for me.
Yeah.
But then there was one that came out that I went to watch with my friends at the theater, and everyone at the exit is like, "Oh yeah, that was awesome again, great film as always." And I was like, I don't feel the same way. But obviously, I was like, yeah, it was good. But deep inside, I was like, there's something about this film that I didn't know why. I couldn't put my thoughts into words. But I was like, there's something about this movie that made me feel, I don't know, I didn't like it. And so that's when I kind of went like, why didn't I like it? Well, what was not working for me? And I think that kind of triggered the spiral of, okay, I wanna get into it. I wanna study a bit. I didn't take any course or anything. I just did some online stuff. But I just started watching a lot, reading a lot, investigating a lot about filmmaking. And eventually I got to a point of just doing some Facebook posts randomly talking about movies that I watched. People started saying, you should create a blog. You should create a blog. Yada, yada, yada. Summer of 2016, it was rainy outside. We couldn't go to the beach. And I was like, well, gotta do something.
Yeah.
So I created a random blog on WordPress, and it just went on from there. For the first couple of years, it was just a random hobby. I would watch and write a review here and there, very basic stuff. And by the end of 2018, I was like, I want to take this into like a more serious project. So I was like, when the new year starts, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a nice website. I'm going to have an extensive watch list. I'm going to try to watch as much movies as possible. And I had that goal of, because to like get into societies and Rotten Tomatoes and all that, almost all of them ask like a minimum 2-year output of some sort.
Right.
So I was like, for the next 2 years, I'm not going to worry about anything. I'm just going to worry about watching, writing. Yeah. And then 2 years, this was like in 2019. So COVID hit us midway through it, which means that obviously it was bad, but for my film critic career, it actually worked out because then there were no movies in the theaters, which meant that studios and distributors were kind of like, we'll give you a screener, because they needed to put their movies out somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a lot more open to give screeners to everyone, especially people starting out like me. Sundance was a big thing because they started doing virtual festival, and I covered it for 4 years straight. And all of it kind of ramped up and helped me grow not only my own voice in the community, but especially like I started writing so much more that I kind of got to a structure now that I like very much. And that's why I appreciate your comments before about being longer and a bit more rich, because I do now focus a lot on I love my structure. I do it for every movie. I think it works perfectly for me. And I write so much faster now as well because I have that structure in mind. And that's pretty much it. And then it was just continue to write, talk with a lot of people on Twitter, like you as well, and just ask them, hey, do you need another contributor for your outlet?
Wow.
Some people said yes, went from there. And then I was just lucky here and there to meet the right people at the right time. And I just have so many people to thank for. So that's pretty much my life story.
So was it like a natural progression to go from the blog and reviewing movies to just into a podcast, like the whole Once Upon a Franchise? How did that come about?
Yeah, the podcast. I always wanted to guest on a podcast, and I think I was a guest on one many years ago. I don't even remember the name now, but it doesn't exist anymore. But after that, I kind of got the little itch of like, I like this. I wanted to do a podcast more. But since I didn't know, like, I was like, I can't be the host because I didn't have experience. Why I can't be the host alone at least. So when I kept like year after year being like, I want to be in a podcast. Can I be a guest somewhere? I got Darin here to say, you're on my list. And I have
that was a
another
long time ago,
exactly. But like, I was like, I know I'm on some people's list, but I'm gonna do my own podcast.
Yeah.
And it just then I had the idea. I don't even remember how the idea for Once Upon a Franchise came out, but I think it was the same sort of concept of I really wish I could stop and watch earlier movies because the idea is, of course, I've seen, in this case, we're starting with the MCU. Of course, I've seen all the MCU movies. Or, of course, I've seen a bunch of Martin Scorsese movies, but they are so long ago that I'm always afraid that my opinion now isn't the one that I kind of have registered, that I remember. And it's quite funny now with the MCU because it's such a mainstream saga now. You would think that there wouldn't be many changes with time. And oh my God, like we're on our 9th film now.
Winter
And
Soldier.
my ranking, and my ranking is like completely shift from what I had before. And yeah, so I find that so interesting that like we can go back, and even though our opinion can be more or less the same, it can still shift quite around and compare to other movies within a franchise in this case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm really cute. That's why I really want to do the filmmaker one, because I do have a lot of cinematic holes in my resume, because I did start late, so it's not like I have the same cinephile knowledge as everyone else maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I kind of want to go back and be like, oh, I haven't seen many Paul Thomas Anderson movies. I kind of want to visit this filmography and like go through it. And yeah, that's kind of the concept that I'm trying to do in my podcasts. Then I just answering more to Johnny's question about how it translate. I just tried to think of, okay, I found my structure for reviews and it works beautifully.
Yeah.
So I kind of need to find the right structure, and then everything will kind of flow more naturally. And so when I found that for Once Upon a Franchise, I was like, okay, this is a structure I like. I think it's going to work. And then it just kind of flew naturally with Ren, and he's a big friend of mine since a long time ago. So it's just a conversation, basically. We don't think we're recording a podcast. We're just talking about the movie we love, and that's it.
That's cool.
Right. Yeah, that's how Jonny and I have these conversations all the time, especially lately, about what are we sharing? Like, it's what do we kind of bring to the podcast sphere? And I think it's just your opinions and your enthusiasm for movies. Like, everybody's going to have a different opinion. Everybody's going to have a different like mode of attack for how they watch movies. It's interesting that you say that you're a late bloomer, because I watch a lot of YouTube reactors, and it's basically I do that because they're, you know how it is. You watch a movie that you fall in love with and you're like, I want my mom to see this. I want my girlfriend to see this. I want my wife to see this. I want my brother, sister, all my friends. And so you show them this movie just to get to see what reactions they get. And it's different when you show them to friends and family, because they react, they watch the movie in silence, they react, like they cheer, they cry, things like that. YouTube reactors talk their way through everything. So they'll say stuff like, oh, that's funny, or that's sad, instead of laughing or crying. And it's really interesting. But the thing that's interesting too is their knowledge of things seems to be formulated by the MCU, by Lord of the Rings, by Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, because that's their frame of reference. So they started with the popular stuff. And even though, like you, they're going out and they're watching the older movies, and I know some people, they're just getting acquainted with Ghostbusters or just getting acquainted with Back to the Future. It's like, whoa, 40-year-old movie. I mean, at least you're getting around to it. But the difference between you and your reviews and YouTubers' reviews is the YouTubers, I don't know if they're getting paid by the word, but they come off as very dumb. Like they don't, they like, some of them do, like you watch an Apollo 13 reaction, they do not know that NASA is a thing. They do not know that the Apollo 13 or Apollo missions actually occurred. And you watch them go.
If I may, that's not a critic issue. That's really a person issue.
Yeah.
They don't know if the NASA is real.
Right. So the difference is between them and between you is like, you seem to, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have the knowledge that I need, right? You say you work a format. I think that's very, very smart. Again, Jonny and I, starting a podcast, we had that same thing where I was like, I want to start a podcast. I'm getting an itch. I don't want to do it myself. No one wants to listen to me just talk. Who can I get? Oh, my best friend from childhood, Jonny. Let's get him on. And so that's where we're now on episode 134. Who just kind of grown from there. But like I said, you deciding to delve into filmmakers and delve into franchises is an interesting format, because listening to your Iron Man episode, what I loved is that you were like, oh my gosh, there's actually a story here and there's character building. It's not just quips and things like that. And so it's fascinating going back and watching the MCU, like phase 1. Oh, these are actual movies. You know what I mean? They're telling real stories with real character arcs. They're building characters from the ground up. Like you said, when your rankings, you kind of change over time. But you're also noticing, oh, that's very nuanced, or this is very smart. They built this, and they don't concentrate on that stuff now. And same thing with filmmakers. Like I'm not trying to tell you what format you should take, like if you're going to do a podcast like that, but Johnny and I love looking at filmmakers. Like if we're going to look at a filmmaker, we're going to look at them from the start and how they build and how they change over time. So that's fascinating looking at the MCU. Is that with the MCU, is that something that, again, you're coming across and judging from the Iron Man episode, the Captain America episode, and Avengers, you're like, oh, this is amazing. This is actually working in a much better, more grounded way than before. Is that kind of what your reward is for doing Once Upon a Franchise so far?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. We're actually, I'm deep down, I'm like regretting starting with the MCU because it's like 40 plus films. So we're only gonna jump to the next franchise in a year or so.
Right.
But it's been quite. I mean, we started the MCU because we're both Marvel fans, and we kind of, as everyone else, kind of, I don't know, went down a kind of sort of downhill curve now with recent movies at the MCU. But yeah, it was just, it's probably gonna get a reboot soon or whatever. So maybe we'll get it. Let's rewatch it, and we'll probably just end right on time for the last Avengers film or whatever it is. It's gonna be like. But yeah, the reward is just getting. I always say things. I don't know if it always makes sense the way that I'm gonna put this, but I always try to. Let me think through this because it is very hard to like put into words. I always want my thoughts to be accurate to what I'm truly feeling. So if I, for example, with now Once Upon a Franchise, I had an idea about, let's say, Iron Man, which actually didn't change much. I actually still love it. But I had an idea about this particular movie. Rewatching it, I'm only going to make my thoughts be more accurate to my feelings because I'm rewatching it. So if I have some doubts about what do I really feel about this film, by rewatching it, I'm just making my opinion more accurate to myself. So that when people ask me about what do you think about the film, I'm not just picking something that I've watched years ago and I'm like, oh yeah, I think I like that, I think I didn't like that, I think I love this movie because of this and that. And by constantly rewatching it, and that's why I feel like I really want to rewatch more movies like more often, because I feel like, especially me, I do have a hard time like remembering everything that happened in a movie that I watched last year, even though I loved it. It can be like in my top 10 of the year. I can still feel like because we watch 100 plus movies every year, so it's hard to keep track. But yeah, I really want to rewatch more movies, and that's why the podcast came about, because I want my thoughts to continuously be accurate to what I truly feel about the film. And the time changes, so it's only natural that a movie that I've watched 10 years ago that I might feel somewhat different today, even if I still love it more or less the same way, even if I rate it the same or rank it the same. I know that people are very focused on grades nowadays as well. Even if it's all the same, even if what I like and don't like about the movies is the same, I might be feeling different about it. Maybe on a rewatch, something that wasn't really a standout for me, now it is, because time changed, and maybe now I'm an immigrant, so maybe there was an angle in that movie that didn't really matter to me, and now I'm like, oh, I kind of understand that now. Everything Everywhere All at Once, for example, it was a movie that I loved when I first saw it. It was my number one of the year. When I rewatched it, I was like, I love it even more because I was an immigrant then, and I could connect a bit more to a couple of conversations that they had, and I'm like, you know what? I had that exact same conversation in a completely different context in my life.
Yeah.
And those things change. So yeah, I think people should rewatch more movies. Period. That's my point, I guess.
Exactly. Great words. You're reviewing this being more accurate to yourself. I love that. Johnny, would you say that was our focus with NostalgiaCast?
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. I mean, our premise was to watch movies we watched when we were kids and see how they changed over time. Because when you watch a movie as a kid, you're not fully developed, you're not fully formed, you don't really understand what you just saw. So watching it as an adult, you're like, whoa, that was different. It's either better or it's a lot worse than I remembered. But also, when you watch a movie, it depends on the mood you're in, when you watch it, who you're with, and how that affects you, what you think of it. And so rewatching it, I like that idea, by the way, is a great way to really decide, how do I really feel about this movie? Is it because I was with my best friend who really loved it and I love it because he loved it, or do I actually hate this movie? You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of nice to do that rewatch. I like that idea.
Yeah, like Apollo 13. We might as well seek into that. That's a good kind of a way to switch to that, because Apollo 13 is a movie that's changed for me over time. And speaking of, like you talked about with Iron Man, speaking of practical effects, speaking of well-built characters, right? Speaking of movies that feel like actual movies. Back in the 90s, and Johnny will agree with me here, we saw everything, and there were so many facets of movie making and so many new languages and so many like visual ideas and storytelling ideas that came out in the 90s that today, and they were like everywhere. You could jump from screen to screen in your multiplex, and every movie would be something. It would be something original and something that stood out. Nowadays, with everybody so focused on IP, it's a little bit harder to find these movies. I mean, even Frankenstein, which is an IP, and you found a lot to adore about Frankenstein, Manel, but still, that's an IP. So you can have a filmmaker like Guillermo del Toro that can bring a personal feel to it. But then there's just there's generic stuff out there. So it's getting a lot harder to find. But like I said, would you agree with that, Johnny? In the 90s, these things were a dime a dozen. Like four movies 12 movies a month would come out that would stand out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Apollo 13, like I said, is one of those that has grown over time. I remember we saw it in a theater as a group of friends. Johnny was with me. I want to go over our histories. Manel, if you could, when we originally were planning many, many months ago for you to come on our podcast, and I was like, well, we're in the early 90s. We're not going to talk about Apollo 13 till the middle, but I just want to get you on the list. And we talked about a list of movies, and Apollo 13 was the one that you settled on. What is your history with Apollo 13, and why is it important enough for you to come onto a podcast and chat about?
Well, the main reason is that I was always a very science kid and science guy, and though everything about science kind of fascinated me, and especially outer space, I was like, yeah, it was like, especially now as a critic, still happens when, especially for festivals, and I'm like, okay, I'm just reading through the lineup of the festival, which movies I want to add to my watch list. As soon as I see some sort of premise like in outer space, add. That's it. That's all I need. So I'm just an avid fan of everything that has to do with space exploration and all of that, because I found that fascinating and interesting. And that's maybe kind of why I went through my actual career path, because obviously I'm not a film critic for a living. I took a master's degree in electronics and telecommunications engineering, just like my fiance, although she eventually went forward and took a PhD. And so we're actually both connected to the same sort of scientific area. And that's kind of my first main connection with, and why I picked Apollo 13 out of the list that you sent me originally, because I was like, yeah, that's a movie that I did remember watching it when I was, again, learning about film, and that was one that came out on the list, and I immediately saw it. I saw Apollo 13, and maybe at the time I saw Apollo 13 maybe first than The Godfather, because it spoke more to me at the time. I was like, I want to watch this movie first, even though it wasn't as renowned or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of my first connection. Is just that I'm an avid space stuff fan, and I really wanted to just know more about. And I'm even now, especially, and I think then as well, but now especially, everything that has to do with like docudrama sort of movies that are based in real stuff. I'm like, yeah, the first thing I love to do after I finish watching a movie like this is immediately going to investigate. Before even taking notes, I immediately get home, or in this case, I was already home, but I immediately go online and like, I want to know everything about it. I want to do the differences. I want to know if they dramatized heavily something or not, because I also think that's important to know. I don't want to go into a review and be like, oh yeah, this happened. And maybe, actually, it didn't quite happen like that. They did quite a few changes. Actually, they did a few changes, and this one actually pisses me off a bit, because they did it to, I don't know, they're using human death to maybe be more dramatic or something like that. And I'm not exactly a fan of that. And for example, a movie that came out, was it last year or 2 years ago, The Iron Claw, about the Racing family, where they kind of completely deleted a brother out of the story. Like it doesn't exist. And the way they kill off the characters and all that, and I'm like, well, it didn't quite happen like that in real life, and it kind of pissed me off how they adapted that, because it really felt like, oh, you're just doing this so that it's more emotional, it's more powerful, it affects the viewer more. And I don't like when the intent is a bit shady. It's not like, oh, we want to do this because it's narratively coherent or it's respectful to the original story. No, we want to do it because we want to be more dramatic. And I don't really like when the intent is that. With Apollo 13, they don't do that. They try to be as accurate as possible. And then, yes, of course, it's a movie about a mission to the moon. Of course, they're not going to be 100% accurate to everything.
Yeah.
But it's quite surprising the amount of things that they get right, especially on an engineering side and scientific side, that we'll surely talk about.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not something that. That's why I really love this movie. It's not only tremendously accurate to what happened, it feels a very like competent film about competence. Like we're showing characters who are just competent at their job. There's no crazy maneuvers in space like, oh, Tom Hanks is gonna save everyone because he's gonna turn into Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick and like save everyone or something. There's not. The action here is seeing them problem solving in the moment, and that's exciting for me.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, might be like, oh, they're just talking about scientific stuff. That's great to me. It's like I love it. That's my major action set piece in a blockbuster. It's them trying to duct tape something into a plastic bag, and I'm like, yes, that's my thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like we'll talk about the historical inaccuracies and accuracies, but you're right. They really stuck to a lot of this, and the changes that they made in the movie, I think, work for drama. We'll definitely come back to that. But again, I don't plan on this, but I might be comparing you to the average YouTube reactor. Again, the average YouTube reactor only stays within their territorial bubble. So if they watch a movie like Apollo 13, they're going to be like, I'm just going to live blissfully in ignorance. I don't know if this happened or not. Next movie, right? And that's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to Jonny. It's frustrating to a lot of our guests. I love that that's something that I look for. It's like, yeah, I'm watching this movie, but I'm going to dive into the history. I'm not just going to take everything at face value. So again, it's very, very smart. Jonny, other than seeing this movie as a group of friends, because we did everything together, what are your memories of Apollo 13? Like, you remember your first watch and how you felt about it?
Well, I remember again, like you said, seeing it with all of our friends. I remember liking it, but I remember the most is the hype that surrounded it. Like, because we'd see the trailers when we'd see other movies in the theater. This would always be a trailer that we'd see before, and so just the hype and the excitement that was generated because of that for all of us when this movie came out. We were like, yeah, Ron Howard movie. It's got James Horner. It's got Tom Hanks is starring in it. Kevin Bacon, Gary Sinise, all this stuff. So we were all excited about it. And I remember liking it, but I mean, it didn't really. I mean, it's something I revisit all the time, but I still really enjoy it when I do watch it.
Yeah. So again, movies are very subjective. I remember watching it like Manel, this is like, again, our fifth Ron Howard thing. You think we were like huge Ron Howard son. It's just he was very prominent at the time when we were growing up. Like his name would come up all the time. Like, again, he was a Lucas protege, a Spielberg protege. And so naturally he's going to branch out and have all these other movies. But yeah, Ron Howard was definitely an attraction to watch the movie. And I do remember Ron Howard is great. He tells stories about families, but I don't know. A lot of times it's competent movies. Like we talked about Willow, we liked it, but it's like, yeah, but it's, there's not a lot of edge to it. It's a very nice movie. Like there's not a lot of like deep dive stuff in here. And Apollo 13 was different because it's very technically amazing. Like famously, he did not want to reuse actual footage of because he thought it would be jarring to jump from film that he was shooting to all of a sudden like a photo or stock footage that was all grainy. So he wanted everything created from scratch. And so that's one thing that he did. And so like you said, all the technical jargon is very, very accurate. But again, I really like the movie, but there are just so many other movies that we were going to see. So it's not one that, like Jonny said, it's not something that we revisited. So just to get a little personal for a second, and I apologize if this is too much information, but I think it really ties in. So I remember a few years ago, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a form of Crohn's disease. What happened was I started to find blood in my stool. And so that's something that you're like, oh, I should probably take notice of that. The problem is my dad, my biological father, he died of liver cancer when I was 2. And it's a well-known story in my family. It's well known with my wife because we're watching out for this kind of thing. But he originally found blood in his stool, and that's how they found out he had liver cancer. So we were going through all these tests. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Again, it turned out to be a form of Crohn's disease. And over a few years, it just turned out that I can't eat wheat, I can't eat flour, I can't eat barley. It's just it's a trial by fire kind of thing. So it turned out to be like, again, something that's biological with me. But going back to that time of we didn't know what it was, I remember we were talking about it, me and my wife, about what this could mean. And she started just sobbing as we were talking. And I asked her what's wrong, and she was just like, she basically said, I don't know how to deal with it if you end up dying, right? Like I don't know what life is going to be without you. And so that was very emotional for me because now I saw what I was going through as it had affected her. And again, it turned out to be nothing serious, but just those few moments with, or that brief time when we didn't know, that was kind of scary. And so I watched Apollo 13 a little bit after I was diagnosed, and I noticed, and this is the format of the conversation that I kind of want to take before we move into the technical stuff, but I think of this movie as a masterpiece of emotions. The screenplay, like you said, Manel, it's very technically driven. And what I find amazing is you find out a lot about, you react to the situations because of the way other people react to the situations. Like you find out, and again, I made a list of everything. I went through the movie and I was like, oh, this every scene has a thing about reactions or has a moment of a reaction. Like the first thing you notice is when they're watching the Apollo 11 moon landing, and Jim calls us. He's got the whole family. He's got other NASA people, other astronauts in there. He calls in, like they show that they're going to land on the moon, Neil Armstrong, and he calls in his kids. And as you see Walter Cronkite reacting, and all of a sudden it just focuses on Tom Hanks. And what I thought was interesting is that you get from Tom Hanks's reaction that this is something he wants to do. This is something that's a goal for him, that's a drive for him. And for the rest of the movie, like you can go through, like the next scene is when Jim and Marilyn are outside. And as he's talking about the moon and what it's going to mean being up there and what the world is going to be like, we get a shot of Marilyn now reacting to him talking. And you get the feeling, oh, this woman loves her husband. Look at the way she's in awe of him as he talks. And so, again, you can go through the whole movie when you see a level like having the kind of the tour through NASA, right? He's got Roger Corman as one of the main guys, and Roger Corman, the character that he plays, basically makes the insinuation that, oh, there may not be an Apollo 14, and you get a shot of Lovell reacting like he's hurt. Right. When he finds out, Deke comes up and he says, we've got a change in plans. It cuts to him showing up at the Lovell house. He goes and he talks to Marilyn saying, that trip to Acapulco we planned, there might be a change in destination, the moon, and it's exciting. But then she does something interesting where she goes, well, it has to be 13, unlucky 13. And you get the sense of her that she's nervous. So again, you could go through every scene and I could do that, but that's going to be me talking for too long. Anyway, every scene in this movie has something where you learn about a character, where you learn about a situation. And what I thought was interesting, Manel, I want to get your input on this, is that even if we, as dumb people in the audience, don't understand what these not NASA scientists are talking about, the screenplay, with a couple of exceptions, it never dumbs down the dialogue enough where it doesn't sound like where it sounds like they're not astronauts, or it sounds like they're not NASA workers. Why would a NASA worker go, well, what's a shuttle, right? I mean, people don't talk like that. So in the scene where, again, when they stir the tanks and the machine breaks, and then Houston, we have a problem, there's all that stuff, or all the flight crew goes into action, all of a sudden there's a pause, and Lovell looks out his window and says, we are venting something out into space. And we get this wonderful, masterful shot. I think it's my favorite shot in the movie. It's called the vertical shot. Well, all of a sudden it cuts to Gene Kranz, Ed Harris, and it does that focus pull. And you can tell from the way he reacts and the visuals that this is a serious situation. So the whole movie does that. It's fascinating. And like I said, with the experience that I had with me and my wife with the ulcerative colitis, I saw this movie in a whole different light where now I can watch this movie and I will sob at particular moments. The first moment I saw about it is when they're doing the launch, and you see Mary and Marilyn, and Mary is so overcome with emotion that she starts crying. And that gets to me. And I just think it's because of the reactions. I mean, Manel, what do you think about? Is that something that you noticed watching the movie?
I did, especially after you told me that you're gonna have that angle in the podcast. I was like, oh, I want to have that angle as well. And yeah, I did notice that, especially the one where Madeline goes and cries because of what's happening at the moment.
during the silence.
But I think and I think it's also I feel like I'm bringing always the scientific or engineering angle to this.
Please,
but
do.
It's funny how it is it kind of complements the whole angle as well of they also are reacting to what's happening all the time. So something broke off, they need to react to that. They need to problem solve. They need to think about it. Something happened here. Okay, we need to react to that. It's not only emotional reactions to everything that's happening, but the whole story is reactions to, the problems that they're facing, whether they're personal or whether they're with the Odyssey ship. It doesn't matter. It's all reacting to everything around them. And which, like you said, with just a couple of exceptions, funny enough, they would never say there's something out venting out of the ship, looking out the window.
Right.
They would know exactly what it is. But those are like the very small exceptions of they probably wouldn't put it like that. But it's so in the movie and it's so coherent with everything that it just feel like everything is pretty real. They shot this in NASA's, I think it's called the Vomit Comet,
yes,
or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
And they shot like I saw the number. It was like they could only shoot inside for like 30 seconds at a time,
right?
And they did like 600 plus shots at that. So it's like I don't know. I don't even know how to count. I think it was Kevin Bacon who said they did like 40 in the morning, 40 in the afternoon. So to get to 600, that's like over a week of doing those things, and it's not easy. I also, another funny story, how can we make it told that one of the camera guys they had like a Mexican lunch or something, and so in the afternoon run he kind of threw up on him. and since they are, as we see in the movie, with the Bill Paxton skeleton, when he throws up, the vomit is just like flying around, so they have to keep shooting with the vomit around because it's just anti-gravity, which I would love to do one day. I would love to put myself in one of those machines one of these days. But everything, the commitment to the crafts also helps that immersiveness and the claustrophobic environment that the movie has. But going back to the original part that you said about reactions, I found the movie to be very compelling, even though when you really look at it, it's not like you have these extremely complex characters.
Yeah.
It's not a character study or anything like that. But it is compelling. Like, I feel like people almost today think that, for the characters to matter, they need to have this incredible, long, complex, layered arc, and it has to be something that is incredibly unique and you've never seen before or anything. No, you can have someone like all the characters in this film, you can say are pretty, I don't want to oversimplify it, but they're you've seen before. It's generic, quote unquote. It's not like something extraordinarily special or anything, but it's extremely compelling because of mostly about what you said. They're reacting to things that are happening and things that are happening, and they're incredibly convincing in doing so. But emotionally, they kind of get to us. Funnily enough, Ed Harris, who portrays the flight director working in NASA in the ground role, he gets one. I don't want to jump forward, but he has a line that it's going to be my line that I take with me for the rest of the movie, for the rest of my life, about failure not being an option, and like just the context of everything, that everyone being doubting, everyone being like all negative, and he's like, no, failure is not an option. We're going to get these people back, and he's never. Again, there's never a scene if a movie was made today and not by Ron Howard, probably he would have a meltdown. There was going to be a big monologue and then a super heavy dramatic scene, and the music would ramp up, and it's going to be a very cinematic moment. And here, no, everything is just like super competent. We're going to keep calm. We're going to bring people home. Everyone that's working on the ground and the team, the crew on Odyssey, they're just focusing on, the mission is no longer landing on the moon. The mission is going back home, and they focus on that. They don't they don't spiral out of control. They just focus on what they need to do. And yes, by reacting to everyone, they react the same way to an instrument failing or to someone feeling sick, as we see with Bill Paxton's character. There's worry there. There's ingenuity. There's perseverance. There's I love how the movie redefines heroism in this film.
Yes.
That's my favorite theme because, again, like I said before, we don't get a Tom Cruise sequence where Tom Hanks pilots the Odyssey back with crazy maneuvers or anything. It's just everyone gets a moment to stand out. It's not just the astronauts that matter. Without the engineers, without those guys that are trying to make a square peg fit into a circle hole or something, without those guys just engineering and trying to find this creative idea in the last minute to try and fix the CO2 issue that they have eventually, they don't survive. So everyone is a hero in this movie. It's not just the astronauts. Everyone, from that random guy that even looks like a hero. He doesn't have hair anymore. He's all sweaty. He's all he's all over the place. Yeah, and he's as much of a hero as everyone else. Yeah. And I love how the movie doesn't make anyone stand out. Everyone is a hero in this film, and I love that.
Yeah, because problems come up. It's constantly. And so it's not just one guy. Oh, CO2, I'll solve that. Oh, the heat shield, I'll solve that. It's like not one guy. You have everybody working together. I love smart movies about smart people doing smart things. And that's what Apollo 13 is. There's any villainy in the movie is just people trying to be making it real, right? You have that scene where it's Deke and the flight commander talking about, oh, I'm aware of all the problems, Henry, stuff like that, and it's, this could be the worst disaster that NASA's ever experienced. And Krantz is right there, Gene's right there, and he's like, with all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour, right? I wouldn't say that the flight director or flight commander is an evil villain. It's just they're talking realistically. And Gene is like, no, we're going to keep this. I'm the leader here. We're keeping this positive. We've never lost a man in space. We're not losing one on my watch, right? So it's that kind of thing. So again, this movie means something to me now because of the reactions. And all of a sudden, my view, even though I didn't really let it sink in at the time, now my view is skewed. So when I watch this movie at least twice a year, just so I can get reacquainted with the idea of people reacting to things, right? It's just so lovely and it means a lot to me. Jonny, this time you watched it, did you notice any of that? And what do you think of the reactions?
That's funny you asked that because I was going to say that I did. It is very reactionary, and I think everyone does a great job of letting us know what they're thinking as they're reacting to things. I love that. But however, this time around, I noticed the kids' reactions more. Maybe because I'm a father now and I'm looking for, I don't know why, and that's what made me have tears come out of my face was the fact the kids were crying over their dad possibly not coming home. You know what I mean? And so that was like, wow, when I was younger, when I first saw this, that didn't affect me at all. But now as a father, it was like, whoa, that was hard to watch, thinking that these kids might not have a dad in the near future. But also it's nice when they do come home and there's that whole relief, you know what I mean, that they made it. So.
Right. The scene with Jeffrey, where Jim is talking to little Jeffrey about like what happened on the Apollo 10, I believe, or Apollo 12 or whatever. One Apollo, where there was the accident where they died or whatever, the door wouldn't open. Later, when there's all the hubbub at the level house, and one of the neighbors is like, I'm sorry, Marilyn, Jeffrey's asking for you. And so she goes in to talk to him. She says, something broke in your daddy's spaceship. And the way that he looks at her, and there's a long moment, he says, was it the door? It's like, it's heartbreaking because he's reacting to that. I love later in the movie where everybody's gathered on the TV, and then you have Jim that comes on, and he's in the very Tom Hanks way. He's a very calming presence. So he starts talking. You see Marilyn come in because she's reacting to hearing his voice. And she sits down again, infatuated with this man. He's just got a calming influence. Then you see Barbara come in. And that's what I thought was fascinating, John. Like you said, she comes in too because she hears her dad's voice. And it's just something she gravitates toward, and she wants to be close to it. So again, that's a very good point with the kids. And again, that ties to performances. Jonny, if you wanted to kind of take the reins here, as far as performances go, like lead us in a conversation about, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't think anyone gives a bad performance in this movie. Like, I mean, they say that whole thing, there's no, small parts, just small actors. There's no small actors in this movie. I believed everyone was who they were supposed to be. Like, even Clint Howard. I was like, yep, he's that little, squirrely guy with the bald head. That's where he should be.
He's a chameleon, that Clint Howard.
Yeah. I thought Tom Hanks was great. I thought Bill Paxton, Kevin Bacon, Gary Sinise. I mean, I love him in this.
Yeah.
It's not doesn't require a lot from him, but still, like he still brings it. But my favorite performance is Kathleen Quinlan. Like
Mm.
I can watch her in this and just be like, wow, like you see every single emotion she's feeling the entire time, and you're right along the ride with her. Really, it's kind of her movie because she's the one who's like suffering for her husband to come home. So anyway, it's her performance that really wins me over.
Interesting. We're talking about everybody gets a moment to shine. This isn't a Tom Hanks movie. He's just the top billed star, right? He doesn't give a performance that's Oscar worthy, even though it's very believable. I think Marilyn Lovell says that he mimicked a lot of the actual Jim Lovell's movements and mannerisms. So there's that. But again, it's not a showy like Forrest Gump Philadelphia performance. He's just part of an ensemble. Bill Paxton, same thing. Kevin Bacon, they all serve their points. Kathleen Quinlan, you're right. Like it's all about we wouldn't feel it without Kathleen Quinlan, right? We wouldn't get that this means something. It's going to hurt if this man doesn't come home, right? So I think they all work together. My favorite performance is Ed Harris. I love Ed Harris in this. I think he's so take charge. I think he's so. I love how they kind of jibe him about the vest. I love that whole thing. Johnny, what do you think?
Well, I was gonna say this. I love the false reveal. Like they show the gift coming in, the vest being revealed, but then no reveal who it is until later. So I
Yeah,
was like, oh, I love that. I love that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Well, it's the repartee between everybody, right? It's also leans into the drama where Hayes and Lovell don't quite trust Swigert, even though he was in real life, like he was an actual he knew what he was doing when he's doing the hard doc. That wasn't something that they had to worry about. He was an expert at that. He was an expert at that before they even why would they put a guy on that ship who doesn't know what he's doing, right? He had all that stuff. Like he was already familiar with the command module. Like he'd been involved with the development of it, stuff like that. But again, there's the repartee, there's the added drama, things like that. Like we talked about the vertigo shot, like we talked about, like I believe it's going to be our finest hour. Gary Sinise, you're right, Johnny. He also has it's him not showing up as a blessing in disguise. I know he's an amalgam of other characters, but I love how he's the one that goes in there and in the movie anyway. He solves the problem that helps them, even though in real life it was a bunch of people. So Sinise and Harris have two wonderful reactions to when they finally make reentry, right? They're waiting for the 4 minutes. In reality, it was 6 minutes, but in the movie, I guess they couldn't make that. It was not believable, I guess. But when all of a sudden they hear the static and you see the craft with the parachutes, right? And it cuts to a shot of Gary Sinise or Ken Mattingly, and he takes a step back like he's overcome with emotion. That reaction right there, that's what gets me going. That's what starts the tears flowing at that ending, because you can feel his relief, right? When Ed Harris, his reaction is he just gets silent and he sits and he's just got a moment where he's pensive and he's teary-eyed and you can see the other people reacting. It's such a true character moment. And I love those. I can just go through and I can pick specific moments in this movie. Manel, was there a performance that you like in particular, or any moment with one of those characters?
I agree with what you guys said. No one stands out for me. I think it's an ensemble cast victory here. Everyone is great. If I had to pick one, I would pick Ed Harris as well, just because I kind of relate to that of trying to be as professional and calm as possible. And if the mission is finally accomplished, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And then when he sat down, I was already sat down. But if I wasn't, I would sat down as well, because it's such an overwhelming pressure of like, oh my God, everyone here it's really hard to keep this sort of leadership role and calming presence and positive, optimistic view of, no, let's not focus on the problems, let's focus on the solutions. Let's not guess, let's work and try to find something that we can actually work on. Let's grab everything that they have in the spaceship, throw it on top of the table and find a solution. He's only focused on getting everyone back home. And so when they arrive, he's like, oh my God, thank God. And he's just so relieved. And it's funny how relief is such a powerful can be such a powerful emotion. So Ed Harris would be my pick, even though, like you said, oh, I'm forgetting their first name, the actress.
Kathleen.
Kathleen, exactly. I think she's great as well. Because she does have the most emotional role, because, I mean, she's the wife of the astronaut that's in space, and she's dealing with, the potential loss of her husband and the man of her family, and then she doesn't know. She even says that in a dialogue as well, like, I don't know how, I can live without you. Or I think it's actually the last thing that Lovell says to him, or when he's going away, you can't live without me. I think that's the last sentence he says to her, right? Something like that. So Ed Harris, I would pick him, but I think it's an ensemble cast effort. And yeah, what was the original question now?
No, that's it. You got
the question.
Yeah, Johnny, did you have anything to add?
Sorry, I forgot, because you did mention the re-entry, and that was like one of my little notes here, where it's funny how a lot of the times people think that adaptations like these, they try to make it more dramatic, right? Oh no, they're changing this so that it's more cinematic. They're changing this to be more dramatic. They're changing this to be more tense or suspenseful. And it's funny how they actually reduce the re-entry time, which should be 3 minutes. In the movie it's 4, and we're like, oh my god, it's a full minute above the limit. Oh my god, it's crazy. And in real life it was like 6.5. And you're like, if I know that if they did that in a movie, people will be like, oh, now it's just too much, I'm sure that didn't happen. And it did. Like, it's twice as much. So it's crazy how, again, as much as people may say that, oh, but they dramatized here and there. No, they also reduced in some other places. So it's really a very, very accurate film. And it's funny how, this moment, which should be the moment that filmmakers are like, oh, I'm going to extend this as much as I can. I'm going to have people, cry just of waiting. And no, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to extend it 1 minute just for that moment. And then I'm going to give the relief feeling to everyone. And I think it's the ultimate proof that Ron Howard just wanted to get things right. And not overwhelmingly right or anything. He just wanted to get it right, and he did. And I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, perfect. John, did you have anything what he was just talking about?
Well, we talked about it being an ensemble cast, and I agree with that. One thing that stands out to me is that scene with Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Bacon, when they're up there arguing about the whole oxygen thing and how they're going to solve that problem. And they go back and forth for a while. Not one person just has the moment to shine. It's like they all have this moment to shine. And so that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is when they're like yelling at each other back and forth. And at the very, very end, Tom Hanks finally raises his voice. But I just think that's a good example of an ensemble. Usually you'll have one person give this thrilling monologue or something and be like, oh, wow, look at that. But like this movie, everyone had their moment. And so I really like that idea of being an ensemble.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna seek into the technical side and the inaccuracies, but to do that, we talked about the acting. I just want to talk about the directing for a little bit and why I think this is Ron Howard's best movie. Again, Ron Howard, his theme in every one of his movies is family. If you look at every movie, whether it's The Paper, whether it's Parenthood, whether it's Night Shift, it's about these group of people that gather together and work as a team. So that's in there. But I also love, and Manuel, you talked about it, or we talked about it together, but he didn't want to reuse any footage. He wanted everything to be created from scratch, so it seemed authentic. And so, yeah, the jargon is accurate. The design of the ships, the Odyssey, the Aquarius is accurate, all of that. I love that he didn't want. We talked about the Vomit Comet, which is a fun name, but it's the it's the KC-135 airplane, which Ron Howard didn't. He was trying to figure out the weightlessness scenes, and couldn't figure out a way to make them not so hokey. He was talking with Steven Spielberg of all people, and Spielberg was like, "Oh, there's an actual plane that you can board. It'll raise up, it'll fly up high, and then all of a sudden it'll drop altitude, and in that 30 seconds or whatever, that's when you get the weightlessness, because there's a difference between going up and falling, right? I love that stuff. I love that, again, he's getting the good performances out of everybody. NASA wanted to, I believe, let them shoot in the actual room, the command center, but he's like, no, I want to create my own. So they created their own command center. Something that I found out today was very funny is he, working with a visual effects supervisor, Rob Legato, again, they were trying to work together to figure out how to make authentic, real, new footage instead of old footage. And what Legato found out, like he was trying to, how do we make the launch sequence, say, make it realistic? And I don't want to use like maybe models, stuff like that, or I don't want to use like certain things. And Ron Howard said, well, why don't you try, how about we try shooting it like Martin Scorsese would shoot it, right? Which planted an idea in Legato's head where he started researching Scorsese movies. And the movie that he went and studied was The Color of Money, which is again edited by Thelma Shoemaker, Scorsese's usual editor. He found that during the pool scenes in that movie with Paul Newman and Tom Cruise, that during the action scenes, there was a weird way that they would shoot him, and he found out that Shoemaker would repeat frames. Again, famously, every movie is 20 frames per second, but she would repeat certain frames. So when you watch the action scenes in the movie, there's a very unique energy and a rhythm and a music to it. And so Legato was like, maybe we should try that with the launch sequence at Cape Canaveral. So when you watch the rockets, the boosters and the flames and everything, he does that same thing for the editing. He did like a test, and the editors were able to, they use that exact same footage where it seems there's a judderiness to the filmmaking and the editing, and it does add a unique flavor. I thought that was very interesting. So again, I just love that technically I think this is Ron Howard's best movie, but it also ties in with, there's an edge to it with the realism and the people trying to keep it real, but there's also like the family idea. I think it's just a perfect amalgamation of Ron Howard. Manel, what do you think of Howard's direction in this? And was there anything that stood out to you as far as direction goes?
Well, everything inside the Odyssey, because I feel like it's such a small space. I can't even imagine like fitting a cameraman in there besides everyone else. It's just those sort of claustrophobic environments for me always, they're so immersive to me. I'm like, I just said before that I would love to go to space one day. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if I have to go in one of those little tubes where I feel like I'm 1 centimeter away from outer space and I'll die, I'm like, maybe I don't want to go there. Maybe I'll wait for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's just envisioning spending like a full week on such a short space where you don't have privacy, you can't even go to do your things. You need to put it into a plastic bag and then flush it. Although I think that would be fun to like just flush your pee down into space, and like they say, oh, it's such a wonderful thing, and it's safe.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful shots in the film.
It is. The way it crystallizes when it exit the ship is fun. It's a nice little
beautiful, gorgeous stuff. But no, I think the launch sequence. I mean, look, as you might imagine, the launch sequence for me, it has to be something like, you can't miss this for me. It has to be. It's the one thing I need to be cinematic, or the score has to ramp up somehow. And James Horner does a great job with the score in this movie.
No. Yeah.
And the launch sequence is great for me. Armageddon is like my guilty pleasure, and it has like one of the most crazily epic action launch sequences I have ever seen, because the score is just like, oh my god, yes, go up. It's so great. But yeah, the launch sequence is great. But again, the directing, I think, it stands out by everything that it does on the Odyssey. I think it's great. I can also say that when they're in the command center, the way that he has Ed Harris like framed in relation to everyone else, I love how he does that. Yeah, he's a great director. He always was. So yeah, I actually would agree with. I don't know if it's my favorite Ron Howard film, but technically being the best, I think it's very, very clear to me.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you think about anything stand? I do want to mention it's Dean Cundy doing the cinematography for it. So Halloween, Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, very, very famous cinematographer. But what do you think of the direction in this?
Well, I do think it's a very good technical movie, and I think they do a really good job of putting everything together as far as the sets, the CGI, all the special effects. But the acting is where I think he really shined. He pulled some really great performances out of these actors. He got great actors to begin with, but I mean, like I said before, there's nothing I don't believe. I mean, I'm in that world with him the entire time, and I think it's a testament to Ron Howard's direction.
Yeah,
because he's an actor as well.
Yeah, so he knows what he's doing. Okay, so the technical accuracies and inaccuracies. Manuel, did you want to? I've got a specific idea about how it works and doesn't work. But did you want to add anything? You've already talked about. Did you want to add anything to the technical stuff, was there anything else you wanted to kind of point out that was realistic or not realistic, or that you loved that was more accurate? Any other insights?
Well, that I have a couple of tidbits that I just found. But I mean, first of all, there's a meticulous attention to technical detail, like an adherence to historical record. The vomit comet use and the way they achieved the moments of weightlessness and all that. It looks great. It's all very great. The things that I found that it's not that they're not real, but they were simplified for the purpose of the film because it makes sense. Is the role of the flight director, portrayed by Ed Harris, is not just one guy in real life. It's a rotating role between 4 teams, so it's not just one guy that controls everything. But obviously, if you have 3-4 characters taking over that role in the movie, it can kind of get confusing and distracting, and you're like, okay, wait, who's the boss here?
Yeah, too many cooks.
Yeah, too many. So it makes sense, and they do kind of do the same with Ken Mattingly, because he is in real life, of course, and he did help. He was always involved in the mission. He never actually left home and got drunk or whatever. That ever happened. I think he was always involved in the mission, but he was not the only one doing the re-entry tests. He was not the only one trying to find that out. There were a lot of other astronauts also doing the tests and trying to help out. But again, of course, for the movie, it works a lot better than that. It's just one character doing that because, again, it helps with the drama, but it doesn't feel like it's forgetting people, because, again, it's a movie that celebrates everyone. So you can't really accuse of, oh, but they forgot these 3 guys. Well, yeah, but you can't. It's thousands of people. You're not going to have thousands of characters in the movie, so you do have to simplify this. But these are the major changes. Everything else is just like a couple of lines, like the famous Houston, we have a problem. It's actually Houston, we've had a problem.
Yeah.
It's not gonna matter really. The time changes. We talked about the re-entry blackout period. It's 4 minutes in the movie, 6.5 in real life. And I found about the switch. So when Swigert flips the switch that creates the explosion of the oxygen, it immediately happens in the film. While in real life, it took he flipped the switch and it was like 1.5 minutes.
Right.
And then it kind of exploded. Again, all of these things that we're talking about are very minor things. Yes, it's not 100% scientifically accurate, but it's like 99%. And that's great. Not everything was as improvised. I mean, the movie makes it feel like every single thing that happened wasn't part of an alternate plan or anything. Yeah, they had some lifeboat scenarios in place. The whole CO2 duct tape plastic thing, that was a last minute sort of effort. But even that was based off of something that they also had an idea in their backup plan. So they have backups, but obviously the movie kind of made it. It's still all needs to be done by the astronauts still. So even if it's a backup, it's never in a high pressure moment like that. You can simulate that as much as you want, but it's not the same thing. There's a scene where the first time they fly or they simulate the flight with Swigert, and he can't make it, and they all die. They're all charred and burned.
Right.
And they even joke about it. Tom Hanks asks "Oh, how do you feel?" And he's like, "Charred and burned." And they took it. It's almost like sort of a humorous moment there, when it is really a very serious thing. And that it gives a lot more attention to when Swigert actually has to do the real thing, and they're all like, is he going to screw up again? So, yeah, but again, in the simulations, you can kind of get away with it. In the real moment, everything, as much as you practice, as much as you trained, as much as you have a full list of plans and backup plans, you still need to execute. And that's always going to be tense. And I love, again, speaking about Ron Howard's directing, I think it does a great job at showing that even if, you have these minor little changes, but it doesn't affect at all my enjoyment of the film, and it shouldn't affect anyone's really.
Right. Jonny, we've talked about historical inaccuracies in biopics before and how that matters or doesn't matter. Young Guns, we talked about it. Wyatt Earp, we talked about it. What, in this movie's case, Jonny, what do you think about historical stuff? Do you think is it ever confusing? Do you think they have a nice balance of kind of keeping it human and understandable?
Yeah, I mean, not in this one. I definitely am able to follow it as it's going along. And I think it's very impressive, honestly, how accurate they were able to be. Most movies with based on actual events will take a lot more artistic license and they'll change things and they'll, make it more dramatic or whatever for the movie's sake. But the fact that this one's so accurate, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah. So the point I wanted to make, again, all great points, Manel, all great points, Johnny. Like we can talk about like Marilyn, her like the ring falling down the drain. That accident happened, but I think Jim Lovelace says she was able to get it back out. It's not like she lost it. Like how they figure out that the Aquarius can be used as a lifeboat. They figured that out in the movie, but Jim Lovell famously was he was one of the first three men to actually be in space and to see an American anyway, to see Earth from space. Again, he was on the Apollo 8. He flew around the moon, so he was one of those guys. We can talk about how, and again, you talked about it, Manel. Like Gene Kranz was not the only guy there that was in charge. There was a guy named Glenn Lunny who was in charge of the black team. Gene Kranz was in charge of the white team, which I guess means like the day that or the night crew. But like you talked about, Manel, it's like you can't have all these people because then it's going to get confused. You have to kind of condense that. But what I love is there when you again YouTube reactors when they watch the people reacting to things, they're like, how can they be so calm? And I'm like, if only you people would do your research, because in real life, if you listen to the actual recordings, they're very matter of fact. Like it's so dull. Like listening to them, you would just think that they're reading like from a manual when they're up in space, almost dying. Right? The drama between and having Swigert come in and not be trusted again, that never existed. You never got Hayes and Swigert going at it on the ship. But for the purpose of the movie, I think you need that drama, because if there's drama is inherent to movies, you know what I'm talking about? It's like you need friction between characters and situations. Otherwise, it's just a dull Teflon experience. It's like watching a documentary where there's no emotion, everything like that. So yeah, there wasn't any infighting, and I do like how Level takes charge of that situation, and then Houston obviously calls and he's, "Are we on Vox?" It's like, yeah, okay. Yes, Houston. Like this is where it's going. I thought that was very funny. That's a nice way to kind of, oh, maybe they were panicking, they weren't recording anything, but I just think for the purposes of drama, you need that friction. Otherwise, we wouldn't be involved. And so any license that it takes again, this is a movie that's impressive because it doesn't veer too far off the beaten path. It's very realistic. They do make changes, but I think it's all for the purpose of making a stronger movie.
Yeah.
And so all of that. But Manel, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, actually, because you mentioned it is not a documentary, so it's not supposed. We're not supposed to be just watching recordings and listening to people talk or whatever. You said, and very well, that according to Jim Lovell's memoir, they didn't have a conflict in space. That's what they put in the memoir. They might have had, because off recording, they might have just had like a little fight and be like, okay, let's focus again. Let's worry. And why would he like write that in the memoir? So we don't know. It's just, but it took people. It's so normal that they would have that. It's so expected that it doesn't feel that they're trying to make. I would be upset at that if they ended the movie and made one character look bad, especially Swigert. If they ended the movie and be like, oh yeah, this guy clearly is a bad astronaut. He's not a good engineer. He was a conflict. He was I would hate if they would do that if it didn't happen in real life, right? Because then you're changing someone's real life for the purpose of drama. And here you don't. Like, I don't think anyone that was involved in this mission, whether astronaut or engineer or whatever it might be, I don't think they would be upset at anyone's representation. We're talking about Ed Harry's role and how he is an amalgam of different people. I don't think any of those people would be mad at that representation, because I think he represented them, all of them, well. And they understand that, you can't have like 5 or 4 people in this position for the movie. So it's not a documentary, but it is a docudrama, if you want to put it, because it is so technically accurate that tries to be accurate. They don't try to dramatize anything. So it is, I think, a good mix between, we'll throw just a little bit of conflict here, because I do think that conflict is inherent to a drama movie. You need some sort of conflict here or there. But it's not the main, it's not the highlight. That scene is not the highlight of the film. They have that small conflict. Jim Lovell steps in, he fixes it, that's it. and he turns on the the little
sort,
radio
yeah.
to use, and yeah, we're all good here,
Mhm.
and that's it. And they become professional again, and they go to and they stay professional until the end. And yeah, but yeah, those were like my last thoughts about that.
Okay, perfect. So I guess the last topic I want to kind of delve into here is the. I used to be really big in the Oscars. Johnny, I think you and your family are still big in the Oscars.
Not so much. Not so
Not
much
so much
recently.
anymore. But now, how are you on the Oscars before we start talking about it?
I was more. I would because I'm 8 hours ahead, so I would stay up all night to watch it. And now I think the last one that I did was actually the Will Smith
Oh,
slap
no.
one because I remember my soon to be wife being asleep, and I was like, it just slapped him in the face.
Yeah.
And she was like, sure, I'll watch it in the morning. But yeah, I think that was the last one that I watched live, because after that I was like, yeah, I'll just watch it at the end, because I'm not a fan of the awards season as a whole.
Yeah.
Because of one particular thing, which is that I so deeply hate when it happens, which is movies that people loved when they came out. They wrote an amazing review about it. They love it. It might even be in their top 10 of the year, but then just because it's winning a specific award, it might not be all the awards, a specific award that they think some other movie should take it, they start attacking this movie they love so much. Why is this movie winning this award? Oh, it's not even that good, yada yada yada. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's in your top 10. You loved it. Why are you attacking it?
Right.
And I that happened so many times that I was like, I just hate it. And I hate the whole thing of, you watch a movie, you talk about it, and now, especially I was just like in London for the film festival, and it's one out of the two. Either people ask how many stars, which I find so so annoying,
It's arbitrary.
or what are the Oscar chances? And I'm like, are these the only two things that matter about movies? Is how many stars and what are their Oscar chances? And so I don't like this sort of very shallow talk about movies.
Right.
So I started getting. I watched the results of the Oscars, and I obviously as long as a movie that I like, that I find it's good, wins, I'm happy. If I find that a movie that I probably didn't like, I'm like, yeah, maybe I get a bit upset.
Right.
But as long as it's a good movie, I'm like, yeah, great for me. I don't care.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm not really big on the Oscars anymore, because it's like an award's not going to matter. You know, How Green Was My Valley winning the Best Picture, great, but people don't talk about that like they talk about Citizen Kane nowadays, right? It's like the awards are just very of their time, and they're not really a focus on what lasts. But I only bring this up because I do remember in 1996 the Oscars being very, very invested, because I think there were just so many good movies. I just wanted to tackle two of the categories here. And the first one, let's go into. I just wanted to mention to you guys the screenplay based on, or adapted screenplay Oscar. So the nominees that year were Apollo 13, Al Reiner, William Broyles Jr., Babe, George Miller and Chris Noonan, Leaving Las Vegas, Mike Figgis, and then Il Postino by Michael Radford, and Sense and Sensibility by Emma Thompson. Now, Emma Thompson won the Oscar for Sense and Sensibility. I think it's a good award, because I think Sense and Sensibility is a very rich, detailed, well-written, funny, witty movie. But the screenplay, again, Al Reiner, he actually made a documentary called From Earth to the for All Mankind. That's on Criterion. It's a fascinating, Manel, Johnny, if you can find that, it's an hour and a half. It's a Brian Eno score. It's just very ethereal about the space program. He made that movie, and so I like that he wrote this. As much as I love Emma Thompson winning for Sense and Sensibility, I just think that Reiner and Broyles, how they, like we talked about, how they were able to condense everything and make so many smart decisions about who to amalgamize, right? About what technical jargon to use, what parts you're going to dumb down, and how the drama that I just think that it gets the technical jargon very detailed and very perfect, but it also balances everything. I just think that this screenplay, you start with a good screenplay, then you get good performances and a good direction from that. I think this screenplay, that's the one that I would have chosen. Again, with the Oscars, 1995 Toy Story is my favorite movie of that year. I think that's the movie that broke like everybody's brains, broke like the industry. But with the Oscars, like Apollo 13, I guess it's good that it didn't win the Oscars, so we can just be more positive about it, like you talked about as well. But Braveheart, which we covered that one. Looking at the Oscars now for Best Picture, I really would have voted for Apollo 13. I think it's just the most solid movie out of all of them, and it stands up today, unlike Braveheart, that has a lot of problems. But as far as those movies go, Manel, what do you think of that best? Do you think Apollo 13 should have won best screenplay? We say should have, and would it have been deserving of an award and being talked about?
It would have certainly be deserving. I would have to say that Babe and Sensibility are so they're, for some reason, I don't know why, but they're very culturally significant in my own country. Like I grew, even though I like Sensibility wasn't the movie that I really cared about when I was younger, but Babe was like a big thing. And yeah, those two movies I kept like it's like there's those movies that you feel like they're on TV all the time. When in my own country, I felt like they were on TV all the time. I feel like my fiance has watched Sensibility like 200 times. I don't know. Because I don't know. So those two films are very, very. I kind of almost grew up with those films accidentally. But I mean, yeah, Apollo 13 would be my favorite out of these just because of everything we talked about here. Although I do also have a soft spot for Braveheart, but I haven't rewatched it in a long, long time. So those problems that you mentioned might pop up. But yeah, Braveheart has that score that I love, and a lot of those epic speeches that Apollo 13 doesn't have. They're completely different movies in this sort of like, how one definitely stands out for its more epic moments and cinematic moments and the speeches and all that. And Apollo 13 is just, they want to get it right. They want to complete the mission, and they do it. So it would be a worthy winner of any award, really. I would be more happy that Ed Harris would win for best actor in a supporting role, but Kevin Spacey was really, really good too. The Usual Suspects. So I actually think was well awarded.
Right. We'll come back to that. Again, it's like Braveheart, you're right. It's very best picture-y feeling you look at. I just think Apollo 13 technically, and it's a better movie, but it's not best picture-y like Braveheart. Like you're going to vote for that one, obviously. It's an actor directing it. Johnny, what do you think of those nominations for screenplay? Do you have any thoughts on
What were they again? Sense and Sensibility and what else?
Sense and Sensibility, Apollo 13, Babe, Leaving Las Vegas, and Il Postino, which nobody talks about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd probably vote for either Sense and Sensibility or Apollo 13. The other ones, I don't really think they belong on that list.
I love what you said, Manel, about them being culturally significant. Like people grow up like with different ideas. So I said only two categories. I've obviously talked about Best Picture. James Horner, too. Great score for Braveheart. Great score for Apollo 13. He was nominated. And what happens is it splits the vote. So people just what won instead? I can't even remember what won in 1995. Il Postino. Okay, yeah. Again, interesting. I haven't seen that one in a long time, but I don't have anything negative to say about it. But it's funny that that's not really in a lot of conversations that I hear anymore. But going back to best, I think this year might be my favorite best supporting actor roster I've ever seen. And any one of these performances, if anybody had won this, great, perfect thing. So the people nominated, it was James Cromwell for Babe. It was Ed Harris for Apollo 13. It was Brad Pitt for 12 Monkeys. And it was Tim Roth for Rob Roy. And Kevin Spacey, I think I meant Kevin Spacey for Usual Suspects or Manila. But all of those, like Tim Roth is so good in Rob Roy and so villainous that I couldn't watch him for years because I just hated him in that movie so much. Brad Pitt that's the movie that convinced me that he was a solid actor and not just a pretty boy. James Cromwell is so quiet in Babe. I know Johnny doesn't have wonderful feelings for Babe, but I think it's just a quiet, nuanced, fun performance. And then Kevin Spacey, he had the 1-2 punch of Seven and Usual Suspects this year. I love that again, very good performance in both of those movies. Maybe take it away from Spacey, looking back at the histories and everything. But what do you think of that? Like I said, Manel, that list of best, those are fantastic, awesome performances. They got every one of those nominations right. What do you think of all those? And what one would you vote for?
I was voting for Kevin Spacey. I know that we're forbidden to talk good about Kevin Spacey today,
but we didn't know that about him back then. So we
didn't know, and I hate. I don't know, switch the whole art from the artist topic, but yeah, I don't like. I can't. Seven is one of my all-time favorites. Nothing that will come out today. They can say that everyone in that film was a criminal. I'm still. I can't change my thoughts of a movie I've watched years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great. I have never seen Rob Roy, so I can't. But I love Tim Roth. I love Tim Roth so much. Oof. So I'm sure he gave a brilliant performance. But I've seen every other movie, and I mean, all those performances are incredible. But I think this one was well awarded. I think Kevin Spacey is absolutely fantastic in The Usual Suspects.
Right. I can't remember, Johnny, if we talked about Rob Roy and Braveheart during our Wyatt Earp Tombstone episode,
A
like the
little bit
twin
we
movies.
did, yeah, a little bit.
Okay, Rob Roy is a much tighter, better movie than Braveheart 2. But Johnny, I mean, I love those 5 actors, and I just think it's so solid. I mean, other than James Cromwell, I mean, what do you think? What do you think of all those and do you think they got the win right?
Sure. I mean, well, hold on. They're all really good actors. Yes, I'll agree with that. Like you mentioned, I'm not a big fan of Babe, so I can take Cromwell off the list. Ed Harris is solid, but I don't think he should have won. So I agree that, he didn't win, rightfully. Kevin Spacey, yeah, fine. Good performance. Good script, really. That's what it was. It was a good script. Now, listen, you talked up Tim Roth so much in Rob Roy that when I saw it, I went, okay. I was expecting like some like performance is just gonna blow me away, and it didn't. But I was like, okay. I mean, it's good. It was really good.
I
but
hyped it up too
didn't
much.
blow me away like I thought it was going to, because of the way you talked it up so much. So I was kind of let down by that. So if I can put Brad Pitt and 12 Monkeys against any one of these guys, Brad Pitt wins every time. Like he is that's my favorite performance of his, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I said, like 5 solid actors, 5 solid performances. If anybody was awarded, great. Like I don't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? I think it's just a very, very nice roster. So again, Apollo 13, I dare people watch this movie again and notice how every scene is a reaction. Right. Every scene is about somebody reacting to something else, and that's what sells the emotions. That's what sells the drama. There are so many moments. I could take an hour and talk about all these little mini moments that just are so perfect for me. And again, if you were to compare this to a movie today, Netflix just debuted or just started streaming The Martian, the Ridley Scott movie with Matt Damon. And I've watched, since they started streaming that, I've watched that, I think, a dozen times already. It's just
another smart movie about smart people doing smart things.
Yeah. And that was funny because I watched, The Martian. I haven't seen this for about, I'll start at this part because and then I watched it to the end. And then a couple days later, I watched it again. And again, like I said, by about 2-3 weeks, I'd watched it like 10 times. I'm like, why am I watching this movie so much? And I realized it's because it's the Apollo 13 idea. It's these smart people. Everything's positive. They're all working for a certain goal. So that's what I love. I love like the reactions to things and how it sells everything, how we get the situations, we get what the characters mean by the way.
You just like watching Matt Damon eat poop potatoes. That's what it is.
That's right. Farming in his own poop. That's right. But Manel, again, thank you for joining us for this conversation. I really appreciate your friendship and your words, and you're so much better than the average YouTube reactor or somebody coming new to movies, right? Because you chatting with us about this, I'm like, I could chat with this guy about anything all day long. As opposed to a YouTube reactor where you're like, I wouldn't be able to hang out with you. I don't think we have anything in common. I just like that you dive into these things. You're not content to just say, I liked it, or I'll give you a couple paragraphs. You have a format with your reviews. I love all that. I love this conversation we had. Was there anything else about Apollo 13 that you anything we haven't said that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I love the shot of the little shots of the moon and Earth through the window. I think they're so good. And again, it should be. Oh, I love how they don't really go. They only touch on this theme. They don't really develop a lot. But there's a moment in the film where they talk about the broadcast. Our TVs are not interested anymore because they've been to the moon before. So been there, done that. It's a routine flight. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, even by this time, they were already unfazed at something that should be insane. Even today, I still find it. Today we're selling tickets for people to go into space, and all of that stuff that Musk is doing or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Katy
I'm like,
Perry's an astronaut. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, it shouldn't be something mainstream. It shouldn't be something that it shouldn't be. It's so strange. So to me, it was the most shocking thing actually of the film for me, realizing that in 1970 people were already like, oh yeah, we've been to the moon, we've done that. And I'm like, oh my god, man, it's so I don't know. It's so sort of, it shows people an awareness of how actually dangerous and extremely skilled people need to be to actually manage to, go into space, let alone the moon. So yeah, I love that they touch on it a little bit, and I love that Ron Howard put that in the movie, like as a this movie, because this movie serves as a, well, sort of a ultimate testimony of how incredible this was, and now it's not routine at all. So
Right.
yeah, those are, I really love that little topic that they added.
Yeah. The James Horner score, especially during the launch, that really sells that this is a moment. Like this
Yeah.
means something. I love that. I love that they have Annie Lennox on the soundtrack, either as Marilyn's internal voice or the moon's internal voice. I don't know. Like it's very interesting. You like having her kind of like an ethereal voice be
Mhm.
part of that. So, Johnny, was there any last things you want to add about Apollo 13?
Well, the one scene I really liked, I forgot to mention, was when Gary Sinise is watching the Dick Cavett show, and like he gets up to leave the room and turn the TV off. Before he does, though, the bulletin comes on about the Apollo 13, mishap. I actually said no. Like, oh no. So well, that was
Isn't
kind
it
of
a
fun.
wonderful moment too, where they go into his room and they wake him up, and his first thought, "How's the crew?"
Yeah,
And as they're giving him the rundown, it's just a close up focusing on his face, him reacting to the news that these people that he cares about are up in space, ready to almost going to die. Again, talking about reactions, it's all great. So yeah,
yeah.
Apollo 13, just a movie. Like I said, Toy Story is my favorite movie of 1995, but Apollo 13 is a close second. I just think it's masterful. I think it's damn near perfect. It's a damn near perfect movie. And again, Manel, you're a damn near perfect film critic and a damn near perfect conversationalist. So I really appreciate you. Like I said, I love the idea that you. I'm not going to claim that we're the first podcast that got you as a guest because it's been a while, but I love that you wanted to be on a podcast, and I was again one of the first people, like you said, that was able to say, "Yeah, I want you on here. Like, let's have a conversation." And you've made this so worth it. I'm thank you for being up so early. Thank you, Johnny, for being up so late. But it's like
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
conversation is something that I'm always going to cherish. But
Yeah, thank you for staying up so late, and thank you for the words. I mean, I think actually the reason we started to interact more wasn't even for our film opinions. It was just like our overall thoughts of the industry or film
yeah.
criticism as a whole. It wasn't like, oh, he loves this movie, I want to follow him, or anything like that.
Mhm.
I think it's sort of like with, yeah, we kind of share a sort of similar view of how the industry works, or how it should work, or at least our values
Yeah.
as film critics, I guess, are kind of the same, and that's how we started to connect. I guess that's at least the what I remember of our friendship arc.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I thank you so much for staying up late, and yeah, inviting me. I think this was great. I can't wait to come back. And
Yeah.
nice to meet you, Johnny. It was a
Yeah,
great
you
chat
too.
as well.
Yeah, definitely you're on our return list. So when the next time a topic comes up, I'm going to love to have you back again.
We
It's
can do The Martian, and we'll watch Matt
We
Damon.
can do the Martian, yeah.
farming in his own poop. So yeah, again, I think it's just something that I sensed about you, Manel. I'm not saying I'm like a perfect person or anything like that. I'm not saying that I know everything about everything, but I'm glad that we're able to connect that way. So where can
Perfect.
people, if people want to read your work, if people want to follow you to the London Film Festival and everything, where can people find you? How can they reach you on the interwebs?
I actually changed my. I had a handle before, which was MSB Reviews, which I
Mhm.
think it was much easier to say, and people would immediately know how to write it. And then I changed it, and I was like, I feel like now people will have trouble.
Right.
But it's just my name, Manuel S. Bento. So it's just how we pronounce it. But you can always check on Twitter. Uh, I'm on all social media, Instagrams, and all that stuff. My portfolio is on Muckrack, and I have a Linktree link as well. So, but yeah, Fandom Wire, movies we texted about, and Talking Films are the three outlets I write for. So you can find me there. And yeah, I covered the London Film Festival recently, so you have a whole bunch of reviews to go through for movies that are about to come out, or might be Oscar contenders if you are into that sort of thing. But yeah, at Manuel S Bento, and yeah, I'll meet you there.
Okay. Thank you, Manel. We appreciate you. Okay, so that's Apollo 13. Everybody go check that out. We will see you next time on NostalgiaCast. But until then, I'm Darin.
And I'm Johnny.
And It's like trying to drive a toaster through a car wash.
I think Jack gave me the clap.
She's flying like a pig.
No one did the obvious. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.